Good morning, everyone. This is Karma Baughman and Ben Baughman joining you this morning. Thank you to all of you for checking in on the webinar this morning. We appreciate each of you. And as you may have noticed in the email that went out yesterday, we are coming to almost the end of the book, which is good and sad, I guess. We certainly have appreciated and have enjoyed these Sunday morning webinars with you. This morning, we're going to talk about mental preparation. Before I jump in, just in case you're not familiar with this platform that we are using, at the top right is the chat box. You're welcome to, at the bottom of that box is a place to write a message, to ask questions, send comments, ideas, thoughts, and that will come to Ben and I, and we will certainly respond accordingly here on the webinar. If you're joining us by phone, I believe it's *5, you can do the same thing. I believe that's it. So let's go ahead and get started into this morning's content. The short chapter that we're discussing this morning is called Mental Preparation, and it was interesting myself to read this as well as some of the comments that came in, because it geared towards beyond just what we may think giving in our minds. I'm going to just share a couple of those comments, and then I'll have Ben jump into his thoughts, which these comments lead right into the direction he was going with it. So it's wonderful how sometimes the response that we get fits right into where Ben was going with the information that he shared in the chapter. So one comment that we got in says, this chapter, mental preparation, is a way to approach life even beyond giving. It's about not living by the shoulds and not living by the guilt feelings. Another comment was, I think Ben's guidance also applies to volunteering. In volunteering, according to Ben's guidance, you meet some of the nicest people, which I think is just another great perk. Not only does giving the way that is described in this chapter make us happy and those around us happy, you also meet some of the nicest people. Volunteering like that is a sort of like a filter for self-righteousness. The people I meet in these volunteering tasks are giving and humble. They make the work easier and the gift of joy to the volunteer greater. So thank you all for sharing those comments, and we'll maybe talk about some other comments too as we go through the content. I'm going to turn it over to Ben, and he will continue on with his thoughts about this chapter.
Wow, thanks so much for the comments, because I love this whole idea of a filter for self-righteousness as well, because this is it's a life-changing chapter to me. This is a life-changing view. It changed my life early on as I began actually looking at this from a life standpoint and seeing things differently than perhaps I had just not addressed them in my mind before. And I think thus this whole idea of mental preparation, for the title of the chapter even, I think it takes something on our part to move to this. But as a worldview, there's something all of us need. We all need to receive. We need to receive and we need to give. It's just a part of things. I'm not going to be able to live with nothing. I have to be able to receive things. I've received the goodness of a good meal. I've received the goodness of others' love in my life. I've received the acceptance from others. All of those things are huge and they're big and they're so important to me. But in this world, there's this piece that Jesus brings to us that's really interesting. It's this piece of, I suppose you could say balance, but I want to be careful with that word, because balance here is a balance that runs, but it leans a little heavily toward the giving side, because the goal is that somehow we make the world a little better place in each thing that comes across our paths in life. In each element, each event, each situation, each opportunity that rises, that somehow we make the world better than we received it. And that whole thing is what makes this place more like heaven all the time. But we lose that whole thought process if we don't mentally prepare for it early on in our lives. It doesn't have to be early on, it can be anywhere. We start making that if we see that it's this way. I can tell you this, sitting at many, many deathbeds in my life, there's something really interesting. People don't talk so much about all of the things they got in life. Instead, they talk about, if they're going to talk about regrets, they talk about the things that they did that were all about getting in life. So I spent too much time at the job. I spent too much time thinking about this or that. But what they wished for are the giving things. They're the things of, oh, I wish I'd taken more time with my family. I wish I'd taken more time. I wish I'd loved my wife better. I wish those kind of things. It's really interesting that when we come to the end of our life, we think about the things we wished we had done for those that truly meant a lot to us in life. And we need to see this as something that becomes a worldview for us. When we look at the world, we want to go away from it. At that point, we leave it saying, oh, I'm so glad I gave this. I'm so glad I did this with my time. And the interesting thing is we always receive back from that. So Jesus teaches us this, give and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. In fact, the interesting thing on that is it seems that the emphasis is that more comes back to you than you end up giving if you will just make it your focus to give. And I believe the purpose of that is that you will always have something more to give, and something more to give, and something more to give. And this it goes together with this interesting piece that Jesus gives us that we need to learn how to give. We need to learn that giving is something that we should be able to do cheerfully. There, I use that word should. It's so hard not to use that sometimes. But we learn to give, and in that giving, we learn that it's the joy of our life to do it. And it never needs to be somebody saying to us, you should give to me, or you should give to this. Instead, it becomes this passion and this joy of living that we're going to live our lives in such a way that we give. Now, in that process, we need to learn something else. That's this craziness that if we keep giving to those that want us to give to them and they have an attitude instead of a worldview, their attitude leads to this is all about me receiving. And so somebody ought to give to me. And can I express something within this? I'll say this. I'm not talking just funds here, money. In fact, there's an interesting thing. Some of the greatest life suckers and some of those that it's all about getting to them have been the wealthier ones that in terms of money that I've met. Oftentimes those who have been given much don't see that it's almost a requirement of life. And in fact it is in God's book. To much who has been given much is required. And they don't get that. But those that are on the end of it's all about my getting in life, the interesting thing is they end up being like a vacuum cleaner on the world. They're vacuuming up the happiness of the world. They're vacuuming up the blessing of this wonderful place. I look at this in terms of national policies. I look at it in terms of our personal policies, the way we live life. You know, I do handyman work now, and oftentimes I love going to some people's house, and so I want to even I'll use an illustration from an older couple that I know that of course I won't express their names or anything. They would not want that in any way. And I don't know them that well on a friendship basis, although I feel like I've become friends with them. And they're a couple that I don't know what they've done to earn their money, but I, they have enough, definitely. And they live in a beautiful old home. Beautiful old home. In many cases, people would call it a mansion. It's beautiful. But I love going to work for them. I love going to their house and just helping them because they're at a place where physical things are very difficult for them now. But the reason I love going there is there's such a spirit of giving in them. They love it when I come and they're so grateful for what I do. And they want to fix me a cup of coffee and they their lives are just giving lives. I don't regret or I don't wish that somehow they didn't have those funds and that house. Instead, it's just a joy to go and be around them. I am certain everywhere they go, they give like that because it's so natural for them to do it when I come in as the handyman because I've found something else out. Sometimes I'll go into places and the people just treat me like, oh, you're just a handyman. And they complain because of the what I charge them, or they complain about this or that. Well, after a while, it's like I don't really care if I come back to work here because you suck the life out of me every time I come here, and that can be rich or poor. It doesn't matter. What it is it's in the attitude of how we live life that this giving and getting thing comes into play. And if the balance of our lives, knowing that we have to receive in life or we don't live, is that I have received so much, so how can I just overbalance it slightly? How is it that I can spend my life? I don't even think we have to think this in the sense of, did I give 51% to my 49% I received? I don't mean it in some sense like that, but in the sense that no matter what I receive, I'm always thinking, how can I give my life away? How can I live life in such a manner that when people are with me, when people are around me, I've given. And I think this whole self righteousness filter is a wonderful thought process because haven't we all been around people that, my goodness, the self righteousness just sucks the life out of us? And then we've been around other people who maybe don't even have even remotely as much in some realms as these that are self righteous have, but their whole life is just a giving life. They're volunteering for this, or they're just giving their lives away with their smile or their graciousness. And the world's better around them just by this very attitude that's inside of them that no matter what, they're going to give their lives away. And what an incredible thing that is. Now, I haven't finished where I'm going, but I'm going to stop here for a minute because I'd like to hear even your responses on this. And I already received the one response before we started this morning. Paul, thank you for that because I love that. It is a self righteousness filter. People that are out there just giving their lives away never seem to be self righteous. They're humble, loving people. When you're in their presence, you feel like, oh my, love those guys. You want to just say thank you to them all the time because their heart and their giving are just such wonderful things. Any comments before we move here to a little further on this?
We just have one. This is more of a question that came in, and there's going a little bit beyond when you mentioned about not doing things because you're based on guilt. And their question is, how do you handle those that make me feel guilty? I have a close friend and even some family members that tend to make me feel guilty if I don't do something for them. Do you have any recommendations, or is there something I can do to alleviate that or lessen that?
You know, it's an interesting thing, and I wish I could just say, "Oh, yeah, I've got a quick answer for you." But my answer is is one that, even though I believe it as an overall answer, it was incredibly helpful to me as Jesus gives the answer to that. Um, I'm aware that we live in a world that this becomes much more difficult to do when it's not people that we can walk away from. It's family members or it's somebody really close to us, or somehow it's not possible to extract ourselves from it. But Jesus gives us this wonderful answer in the 10th chapter of the book of John. And it's this: I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me. I lay it down of my own accord. And one of the things I discovered in life that is still very difficult for me to do often, because I also grew up very strongly in a should culture in the church. And the should culture was constantly guilt producing, and you, you heard you should give. You really should give this. You really should do this. And the more I looked at things, as a young man, I kept saying, that isn't what Jesus taught. I never heard him say, except to perhaps the religious community, you shouldn't be like this. Um, I I always heard this other piece, and one day I saw this passage and thought, there it is, this incredible piece that he even says the reason the Father loves me is I lay down my own life and I take it back again. I don't let someone take it from me. I do it of my own accord. And I realized there was this piece in me that said, I want my life to be a giving life, and I want it to be sustainable giving. And when I live around people that are constantly just sucking it from me and saying, you must give, you must give, you must give to me, um, it's not sustainable. I can't live with that over and over. It's like a vacuum cleaner that sucks up my life, even though if I give all the time, I love that. It really makes me happy. It's what that scripture teaches us. It's more blessed to give than to receive. And the word there literally means it makes you happier. It makes you happier. And I like that. It makes me happier to give. I love to be in that position where I can give. And do I love to receive? Yes. And I hope that I always do love to receive. And I hope that inside of me, it's always a matter of when I've received, I'm grateful. So that the person that's given it to me, or however that's come to me, they can feel the gratitude of my heart. And they can somehow know that it will turn around and they're giving to someone who will give again. And that this thing goes on in this positive forward direction of more giving than receiving. But when someone sucks it out of me, I've learned wherever I can, and I'm saying that wherever I can is kind of that little caveat, knowing that there are times with those that are close to me and times, and I haven't done very good at this, where I take my life back. But more times than not, what I have to learn is that not that I get angry with those people, I just simply pull my life back and say, this is not going to make anybody happier. It doesn't make them happier if I give. They just seem to want more and want more and want more. And it's not making me happier, it's sucking the life out of me. So I'm going to simply move my giving elsewhere. I'm going to move it to where my passion is, my love is, where it brings light in people's eyes. And when I look at it, I think, oh, so glad I could give that away. I think about some different times for this is in the culture of our family now, not because of me. My first wife, and now my wife, Karma, that all of you know here now, um, it's just in the nature to give. Now, I don't say that braggadociously. I say it because I want you to be in that position. I can't tell you how much better life is. I don't know that I can express that. It's just that it makes life happier, it makes life better if we can be in that position where we love to give more than we love to receive.
And I might add to that, as you were sharing, Ben, I recalled an incident or a situation or a scenario I was in. It's been probably 5 or 6, maybe actually more than that now, where I was I had some close friends, and they seemed to be wanting and wanting and wanting from me, and I realized it was becoming draining to me. But I also realized it was one of those situations where they were part of my life. It's not that I could just walk away. And so as I pondered how to handle that specific scenario, some I really, in hindsight looking back, I realized one, I don't have to walk away from it, but like you mentioned, I can step back from it. And so maybe I wasn't as available all the time when they asked for something. Maybe I think also when I made that choice, it changed my perspective when I was asked to help them. And I could feel the joy coming back when they did ask me to do something, because I'd taken a step back and didn't become quite as available. Maybe I made was available to other scenarios with other people, not just solely on them. And then when they would come around and ask, and it did work to do whatever they asked to do, I felt that joy return, and that's incredibly freeing. And I think that's maybe an example of what Jesus meant when you say, "I take my life back up again."
Oh,
And to have that joy return was big to me. I think that was a big life lesson for me. And I do still love to give, but it's when it's the right for both parties, then that joy returns, and there's really nothing that can replace that.
I love that. And Karma, what wisdom, because when they're close to us, we have to find ways, don't we? And to be able to step back from it and not let that grab us and suck the life out of us and maybe not make us, you know, bitter toward them, those type of things. How do we step back from it um, and be able to still be part of their lives? We have to find whatever ways we can. That's wisdom, and it's there are places where we can just walk away from those people, um, and that happens daily. And oftentimes, in that kind of expectation um, giving, where you realize you've given, and now they expect more and they expect more, and it's just an expectation piece on their part, and they're wanting to receive from you, um, and that's a teller in life. One of the things that I believe in is that we shouldn't live life uh, expecting from others. We have a friend that's, you know, has done very well. Uh, and one of the things that from early on in knowing him, I loved this man. And I realized his generosity, his spirit. He has such a huge generous spirit. One of the things I said to myself immediately in discovering this incredibly generous man who's become my friend is I will never take advantage of the fact he is fairly well off and he's very generous. I will never take advantage of that. And sometimes we have to tell ourselves the things. It's a mental preparation for living life in a way that never sucks the life out of others. So this is not only about what do we do when others suck the life out of us, but it's also about how we live so that we do not suck the life out of others. The other morning, I was a bit down and sad, and a friend said to me, I've never seen you that way. And it was like a piece inside of me went off, and I didn't tell them you will never see me that way again, because that maybe is something that isn't exactly true. They're people that I love, and even though I've known them for years, she said, Express, you'd never seen me that way. And but what I realized in that is something went off and said, hey, we're thinking about yourself here for a little bit. And it's an interesting focus in life. I was talking to myself when I said that. I wasn't talking to that person, but to myself. We're thinking about yourself here. And think about those around you. And almost immediately your spirits lift because you can say, wow, it's better when I'm in the giving position, when I'm in the position that makes people happy, that makes them smile, that makes them feel like, I love being around that person. What an incredible thing it is. It's in this heart attitude where we don't expect to be given to, but we expect our lives to be that which gives to others. And it doesn't, as Paul has mentioned, I think this morning, this has nothing to do, uh, it can have to do with that. I shouldn't say it, but it isn't, the focus of this isn't whether I have money to give, even though that can be one of the things. God blesses some people with the gift of making money, and I've known some of those that just because they have such a giving attitude, everywhere they go, it isn't that they lose their money or they throw it away. In fact, the opposite. They seem to somehow are able to just keep making money, but they're so generous in their spirit, so generous in their giving, and it's just such a joy to be around them. What an incredible gift it is then to make money. To have that ability to make it. But this is true for all of us, whether we have that gifting or whatever strengths and giftings we have. When it comes right down to it, if I don't have anything left, but there's light in my eyes and a smile on my face for the people that come into my life, and when they come into my presence, they leave feeling a little bit lighter. I've given something. It's in that attitude we have inside. What a great, great privilege this is. Jesus has taught us, and the early church has taught us, because it's more blessed to give than to receive. It makes us happier to give than to receive. We read that in Paul's writing, 1 Corinthians, the 8th and 9th chapters. Great, great thing it is. Any other thoughts or questions?
I might add another thing, just kind of based on my experience, then I also want to share another comment that came in. But as you were sharing, I guess when you were sharing your handyman, this kind of stirred this thought. I do websites for others. I also do software training for others, and I have my own business. And just like you've experienced with your handyman work, there are some clients I love to work for, and there are some clients that I probably would rather wish they would go elsewhere. And so as we've been sharing this morning, I thought about how have I handled that, and it's interesting because those that kind of drain the life out of me, that I kind of groan when I get another phone call or an email from them because I know they're going to ask for something, which I don't mind doing, except that they don't really want to pay what what it's worth, or they don't really value what I return to them, there's usually come an opportunity where we can part ways amiably, if you will. Either they ask for something and, and I charge too much, and then I say, I'm sorry, I can't do that for you, or another opportunity comes along where I can recommend somebody else to them. And it's very freeing when that happens, when we're able to part ways, not as enemies, but just on friendly terms, realizing this is the time for that. And I'm also asked oftentimes for like nonprofits, can you give us a reduced price? Can you maybe even do this for free when they're a nonprofit association? And what I've done with that is I've decided, and this is also goes in alignment with a comment that I'm going to share in a second that just came in, is I can choose when I want to do that. And the way I choose or decide when to do something on a reduced price and or for free is, does it hit my passion? Is it something I am fully behind, I can fully support? If the passion is there, I will enjoy doing the project. If the passion isn't there and I'm asked to do it and I say yes, even though I really don't want to, it's going to be a life draining, a draining experience for me. So I love the idea, and this is the comment that also came in, is I really like the last paragraph in this chapter, because it's freedom when this is put into practice, and the couple sentences are, passion is the key to how and what and who you give to. Guilt may be good for some things, but it sucks here. And I think that just applies to life in general.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Wow. That's good and great illustration of all of this. You know, I think each of us gives differently in life because we give well and at our best when it's what we do naturally out of our strengths and our passions. And that's where we give the best. But oftentimes we are taught in our culture to give in some programmatic general sense of, well, if we all give to this, because our culture is kind of based that way. So we have large nonprofits we give to. And in fact, we have this kind of culture that's kind of based around um, you know, okay, we give to things and that kind of takes care of our giving. We give our money to things and we hope it's to a nonprofit that is doing good work or what have you. But I don't believe it often is the most effective way of giving. Um, it might help and it might be part of what we do. And say there's a nonprofit that you're volunteering for and you're giving that way because you love out of your passion what they're doing. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. But to just give because you've been told this is important that you give to this, but it's not a part of your passion may not bring great joy to you. But there's going to be ways to give out of your passion. And I think we give the best when we do that because it puts a smile on our face and it makes us want to get up and do something about that. Take care of it because we're passionate. And then we see the benefits of it because it's a passion for us. And we care better. We go about it differently than if it's a passionless giving where we've been told we should give to this and we think, oh yeah, that's good. And and part of this may be that we just simply are saying, um, encouraging others in their passion. And maybe we give that way. Maybe some of your love is encouraging others. Well, then it's maybe encouraging them how to give in their passion, and maybe you're giving to them. Finding a way to make it passionate and not just saying I should be passionate. Remember that should and cheerful don't go in the same line. They don't work together easily. And what this is one of the most important aspects of life, I believe. It's those who follow Jesus. He taught us this with his life. And I think this is where he also, and Karma, you had mentioned something, parting amiably, and amicably with those that maybe try to suck the life out of us. And everywhere we can, we do that. But know that in life there will be some places. And you see this with the religious self-righteous of Jesus' time. He isn't necessarily parting from them amicably. There will be places where it's just tough for us. We just separate ourselves and we say, we will not be with those who practice self-righteousness. We will not go with those who, we can part amiably with those who just are trying to get, they're getters in life and they think that we should give to them. We can usually part amiably from them. Sometimes there are times and places where we have to make the hard decision and say, this may not be amicable. And they may try to do everything they can to snuff us out. But we may have to say, no, you're not treating others like you would like to be treated. And so we're parting ways with you. And sometimes that's difficult. We have to do it. Because it's a matter of whether the world will become better or not. There are things out there in the world, there are organizations, there are corporations, there are individuals who have decided that life is about getting, and it's using others. And I will part ways with those who use others if I cannot get them to quit using others. I will part ways with them, and it may not be amicable. His life needs to be about what we give to this world, not what we get from it. Other thoughts or questions? I know that added kind of a new dimension a little bit. We live in a world, I think we just experienced one of those political seasons where we realized, my goodness, it was about getting out there, and had nothing to do with what I could give away, nothing to do with what I could make this world better with. My goodness. I wanted to part company on every side a few times out there and just say, oh man. But I hope is there's people around all over that I look in their eyes and say, you want to give. That's amazing. That's wonderful.
There's a comment here, then I agree with it, because I think it was very good that you just brought this up about sometimes it's okay to part ways. And this one says, thank you for pointing out that it's okay to part ways sometimes. I'm in the midst of a situation right now in my life where I'm considering this. You've made it easier to move forward on that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. You look at Jesus, and if there's anybody who, my goodness, worked with difficult situations graciously, he did. But he parted ways with those who mistreated the ones he wanted to give to.
I think
He
another
parted
side of
ways.
that,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. The other side of that is when you do part ways, maybe that's a little bit kind of a negative feeling when we do that. But the beauty of that is it's going to build energy and life and joy back into us that we give to others. So what we give out then will be what's the word, greater than what we could have done if we stayed in that situation. So we're saying maybe no to this, but we're saying yes to this.
That's wonderful words, Karma. That's wonderful words. And that's that piece that I'm not sure where it came from, but in the business world, it's been, for a long time, I'd hear that. We're saying no so that we can say yes to something greater. And I think that's an important thing when we look at our lives. There are things we have to say no to, and we should say no to, and so that we can go on to the greater yeses of life. Wow. Yes, that's good. Anything else this morning? I love this, and I hope this has been thought-provoking. Um, to me, it's probably the greatest thing that can happen to any one of us is that we reach this point where the only thing that really matters to us is that we end our lives having given. And we know we're going to have to receive. All of us know that. And we accept that. So we make it the goal of our lives that if where we receive, we're grateful. And then we give. Give out of what we've received. And we make the world a better place. That's incredible.
All right, I don't see any other comments coming in. Thank you, Ben. I really enjoyed this session this morning, and thank you to all of you for your participation and your sharing your excuse me, sharing your ideas and comments. We appreciate that and brings us joy as well. Next week we'll be wrapping up the book. Isn't that amazing? We're going to do the chapter called Honing It Down. There is an epilogue. We won't necessarily have a webinar over that epilogue. You're welcome to read that. The Honing It Down chapter kind of wraps everything up. And so I'm looking forward to hearing more of Ben's thoughts kind of with a wrap-up perspective to it all. I think there's some great points in that chapter. So we'll be doing that chapter next week. All right, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great Sunday and week.